Have you ever heard of Suriname? Do you know where it is? How many inhabitants does the country have? Your answer was probably a big no. But don't worry, you're not alone. After all, Suriname is one of the most unknown countries in South America. When we think of the region, what comes to mind are the wineries of Chile, vibrant Buenos Aires in Argentina, the ruins of Machu Picchu in Peru, or even the famous shopping in Paraguay. Venezuela and Colombia are also always in the spotlight, appearing in the news for political reasons. Meanwhile, Suriname seems almost forgotten on the map. But this small country has fascinating stories and surprising curiosities, such as a frog that glows in the dark and the unusual fact that it elected a dictator as president. And despite its vast territory, Suriname is one of the least populated countries in the world. Want to know more? Then stay with us. Today, Bello Mundo is going to take you to see the country with one of the lowest population densities on the planet and show you a reality that can be a little bleak. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Suriname is one of those places that few people know about, but which holds a treasure trove of impressive landscapes. Squeezed between Brazil, Guyana, and French Guiana, this small South American country is a true paradise for those seeking unspoiled nature and adventure. With around 90% of its territory covered by dense, vibrant rainforest, Suriname is a green jewel embedded in the Amazon. And the surprises don't stop there. As well as lush forests, the country is home to wetlands, mysterious savannas, and mountains that rise to the horizon. Every corner of Suriname is an invitation to explore, with trails leading to scenery as diverse as it is enchanting. Biodiversity is a show in itself. There are thousands of species of rare plants and animals, many of them found only here. Although it's still off the radar of travelers, Suriname is a true diamond in the rough, where natural beauty and a fascinating cultural mix come together in perfect harmony. A destination that arouses curiosity and invites you to unravel each of its mysteries. Number 2. One of the least populated countries on the planet. As well as being dominated by forests, another striking thing about this country is that it is one of the least populated places in the world, with only around 600,000 inhabitants in a territory of approximately 163,000 square kilometers. To put that into perspective, that's less than 4 people per square kilometer. To give you an idea, London alone is home to around 9 million people in an area 100 times smaller. This makes Suriname a place where nature dominates the landscape, leaving the towns and villages scattered over vast areas, virtually unexplored. Number 3. History. Now that we know a little about Suriname's geography, let's understand how this country was formed over the centuries. Before the arrival of the Europeans, the territory was inhabited by indigenous peoples such as the Arawak and the Carib, who lived in harmony with the forest. But everything changed in the 17th century, when the Dutch arrived and transformed the region into an important agricultural center, exploiting sugar and coffee plantations with the forced labor of thousands of African slaves. With the end of slavery, a new wave of immigration brought workers from India and Indonesia to replace the enslaved labor force. They came to work on the plantations, but ended up shaping Suriname's cultural diversity. This mixture of cultures, religions, and traditions has created a unique identity which can be felt in every corner of the country. Independence came in 1975, but it didn't bring the peace that had been hoped for. Suriname faced a series of coups d'etat and a long period of military dictatorship marked by repression and violence. It was a dark time that left deep scars on the population, but the country didn't let itself down. Overcoming the difficulties, Suriname reinvented itself and today stands out as a multicultural and resilient nation where diversity is celebrated and is part of the identity of the Surinamese people. Number 4. Ethnic diversity. When we talk about Suriname, the word diversity takes on a whole new meaning. To give you an idea, the country's motto is "Several cultures, one country." And no wonder. Suriname is like a melting pot, where different ethnicities and traditions mix and live together in harmony. There, you'll find descendants of Indians, known as Hindustanis, who were brought here to work on the plantations. There are also the Javanese, who came from Indonesia, and the Creoles, descendants of enslaved Africans and Europeans. And it doesn't stop there. The Chinese community, indigenous peoples, and even Europeans are also part of this cultural mosaic. It's as if every corner of the world has left its mark there. This mix is visible in every aspect of the country, in the vibrant music, the cuisine full of exotic flavors, and the festivals that celebrate the most diverse traditions. The most interesting thing is that each group preserves its cultural heritage, creating a unique and multifaceted identity that makes Suriname a truly special place, unlike any other in South America. And all this diversity, of course, is also reflected in the languages spoken there. Number 5. Linguistic diversity. As we've already mentioned, Suriname was a Dutch colony for many years, which is why the country's official language is Dutch, spoken by around 60% of the population. However, with so many nationalities and cultures living together, the linguistic diversity there is impressive. In addition to Dutch, which is used in schools and official documents, other languages are also very common in everyday life. The most widely spoken is Sranan Tongo, a Creole language that functions as a lingua franca. In other words, it's the language that everyone uses to communicate, regardless of their origins. And the diversity doesn't stop there. In Suriname, you'll also hear Javanese, Sarnami Hindi, spoken by Indian descendants, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and various indigenous languages. It's a breathtaking linguistic mix, with languages from all corners of the world, Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas, coexisting in a single country. Number 6. Ecological diversity. But Suriname's diversity goes far beyond cultures and ethnicities. With almost 90% of its territory covered by tropical forests, the country is a veritable paradise for wildlife. There you'll find animals such as parrots, monkeys, deer, tapirs, turtles, dolphins, and even cougars. What really catches the eye are the rare species that only exist there. In an expedition carried out in 2006, the NGO Conservation International discovered 27 new species, including a curious fluorescent purple frog which, at night, seems to glow as if it had its own light. The country is also home to the harpy eagle, one of the largest birds of prey in the world, and the small nectar-ivorous bat, which is essential for pollinating local flowers. And if that wasn't enough, there's also the electric catfish, which generates discharges to protect itself, and the poison dart frog, known for its blue skin and potent toxins. And yes, in addition to the blooming purple frog, here you'll also find a blue one. Its bright blue color serves as a warning to predators. The poison glands located in its skin are its defense mechanism, which paralyzes the predator. The curious thing is that the toxin is not produced by the amphibian, but sequestered from different species of ants, on which it feeds. Number 7. Driving on the left side of the road. Following on from our list of curiosities, here's an interesting one. Did you know that steering is on the left-hand side of the road? Although the vast majority of the world drives on the right-hand side of the road, known as the universal driving system, around 70 countries and regions use the left-hand side, and Suriname is one of them. But why is this? The explanation lies in the country's colonial roots. Suriname was first colonized by the British, who left the tradition of driving in the English hand. Even after becoming a Dutch colony, the country maintained this practice. Number 8. Different electoral system. Another curious fact about Suriname is its electoral system, which is quite different from what we are used to. According to the constitution established in 1987, the 51 members of the National Assembly are elected by popular vote. So far, so good. But here comes the interesting part. It is these parliamentarians who have the task of choosing the country's president. For a candidate to be elected president, they need to win 2/3 of the votes of the assembly members. If no one reaches that majority, the decision goes to the People's Assembly, which also includes regional representatives. And if, even then, no candidate reaches the required majority, the situation gets complicated, and the country can be temporarily left without a head of state. This scenario already happened in 1991, when an impasse between the representatives left Suriname without a president for some time. A very peculiar system that can lead to unexpected situations. Number 9. They democratically elected a dictator. If you found Suriname's electoral system confusing, get ready for this. The country democratically elected a former dictator as president. It sounds unbelievable, but Desi Bouterse was in charge of Suriname from 2010 until 2020. Bouterse first came to power in 1980, leading a military coup that became known as the Sergeant's Coup. Together with 14 other sergeants, he overthrew the government of Henk Aren and established a military dictatorship that lasted more than a decade. The stated aim? To combat corruption and unemployment, which at the time affected 18% of the working population. But in practice, the country experienced years of repression and authoritarianism. The darkest episode of this period took place in December of 1982, the December Murders. 15 opponents of the regime were taken to Fort Zeeland, where they were tortured and executed, leaving a deep trauma in Surinamese society. After international pressure, Bouterse left power in 1987. However, he didn't stay long. In 1990, he returned to the helm after a second coup, this time without bloodshed. But the most surprising chapter was yet to come. In 2010, Desi Bouterse was democratically elected president of Suriname, despite being the target of an international arrest warrant for drug trafficking issued by the Netherlands. A historic turnaround that still baffles the world today. Number 10. Rocket launch. Leaving the political sphere for a moment, let's talk about something you probably didn't know about Suriname. This small South American country was once the site of rocket launches. When we think of space missions, it's normal to think of great powers like Russia, with its famous bases, or the United States, with NASA and Elon Musk's SpaceX. But in 1965, Suriname also joined this select group. That year, the Dutch Space Organization, in partnership with the Americans, launched 4 Nike Apache rockets directly from Suriname's territory. And why did they choose Suriname? The strategic location, close to the equator, is ideal for launches, as it makes it easier to put satellites into orbit. The site used as a makeshift base was in the Coroni district, about 3 hours from the capital, Paramaribo. The launch pad was simple, measuring just 20 by 20 meters, but it was enough to put Suriname on the map of rocket launch sites. Surprising, no? Number 11. Paramaribo. Since we've mentioned the capital, it's worth exploring more about Paramaribo, a city that is a veritable open-air museum. With architecture that mixes Dutch and Caribbean colonial influences, its streets are adorned with colorful buildings and historic mansions, giving the place a unique and unmistakable charm. All this cultural and historical wealth has not gone unnoticed. The historic center of Paramaribo has been recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, thanks to the preservation of its unique architecture and the fusion of different cultures. But what really impresses in Paramaribo is a symbol of peaceful coexistence right in the heart of the city. The country's main mosque is located literally next to the main synagogue. That's right, Jews and Muslims sharing the same space, side by side, in a display of respect and harmony that is hard to find anywhere else in the world. Number 12. Predominant religions. And speaking of tolerance, let's explore a little more about religions in Suriname. Remember how, at the beginning of the video, we mentioned the country's motto, several cultures, one country? Well, that phrase perfectly reflects the harmonious coexistence of the various faiths there. In Suriname, you'll find Hindus, Catholic and Protestant Christians, Muslims and Jews, all living side by side without any major conflicts or religious discrimination. It's fascinating to see the number of churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues scattered around the cities, built by the community itself, which lives in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Ask any Muslim what it's like to live in Suriname, and they'll probably tell you that they feel safe and respected, even in a predominantly non-Muslim country. Without being harassed by politicians, police, or prejudiced citizens, everyone practices their faith freely, something rare to see, especially on today's world stage. Number 13. A country without an army. Suriname is one of the few countries in the world without an army. Since 1989, after a turbulent period of coups and military regimes, the country decided to abolish its armed forces. This measure was seen as a way to prevent military power from interfering in politics and to promote internal peace. Today, Suriname's security is guaranteed by police forces and agreements with neighboring countries, especially Brazil and Guyana, which have pledged to support the country in the event of external threats. In addition, Suriname participates in regional organizations that promote cooperation and security. One of these organizations is the Union of South American Nations, known by the acronym UNASUR, which seeks integration between the countries of South America and promotes political, economic, and social cooperation. Another important organization is CARICOM, made up of Caribbean countries, which is dedicated to promoting economic and social development in the region, as well as coordinating security and defense policies between member states, guaranteeing mutual support in times of need. But not having an army is not unique to Suriname. Other small countries adopt similar strategies, relying on larger nations to guarantee their protection, as is the case with Nauru. And speaking of which, we have a video here on the channel about Nauru, an unknown island closed to the world, which has become a veritable concentration camp for refugees, all financed by a major global power. It's worth a look. Number 14. A single movie theater in the whole country. And to finish our tour of the curiosities of this little-known country, let's talk about cinema. But not exactly about film productions. In fact, the subject here is the number of cinemas. In many parts of the world, we're used to seeing long queues and sold-out tickets when the most anticipated films of the year are released. But in Suriname, this is not the case, and for a curious reason. With a population of over 500,000, Suriname has just one movie theater. That's right, just one movie theater for the entire country, located in the capital, Paramaribo. And as you can imagine, the programming is very limited, with only a few films being shown each week. For this reason, many locals prefer to watch movies at home or at community events, where the seventh art adapts to the local reality in a very different way to what we are used to. Curious, isn't it? And so we come to the end of our journey through Suriname. We hope you've enjoyed learning a little more about this country full of curiosities and unique contrasts. Now, tell us in the comments, which curiosity surprised you the most? If you like exploring different places and discovering fascinating cultures, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to follow our next adventures in our Bello Mundo. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.